Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to take a look at the Stamina Dragonknight PvP build for Battlegrounds. I do have a written guide on my website. I also have gameplay video there and so on. Link in the description below. Like I mentioned, this is optimized for Battlegrounds. However, it also works in Cyrodiil. Don't worry, I have champion points and stuff like that all on the website. And when we look at our stats unbuffed, those are our unbuffed stats. Like I said, champion points are deactivated. And here you can see a picture when we are fully buffed. So you can see we have a lot of extra weapon damage. Our health recovery jumps or like skyrockets a lot. Those are the two most important things that really works well with this build, the health recovery. You have so much passive healing, so if you're not very good with rotations, this build is kind of a little bit forgiving because you have so much passive healing. Now, how do we get there? Basically, we are running the Steel Mundustone first off. 10% movement speed. Pretty cool. We barely lose stamina while we are running, as you can see. It's really cool. Now, another thing that it does is it gives us health recovery, which is nice. Especially in combination with the Artaeum takeaway broth. It's a buff food. It costs a little bit, but it's definitely worth using it. You could use Dubious Cameron Throne, but you will lose health recovery. This gives us max health, max stamina recovery, and health recovery. Really nice. And if we combine this with Troll King, that's how we get so much high health recovery with this build. And trust me, it's really important to have the health recovery, and it's really nice. In terms of, well, before I forget, potions, use Tri-Stat pots. Again, they restore health, boost your health recovery even more. It gives you back Magicka and Stamina. We need Magicka for our utility abilities. Race. So there's a few choices you have. I usually recommend setups that either give max stem stats or health recovery. I prefer Redguard. Adrenaline Rush gives you a lot of extra sustain. 10% max stem and a little bit stem recovery. So overall, I think Redguard suits best, but things like Orc, Kashyyyk, or even Nord will also work well with this setup. Please guys, make sure to not forget to subscribe. I will do more videos with Elder Scrolls in the future. Thank you very much. Now when we look at our gear setup, like I said, 2 Troll King, 5 Toruks, 5 Viper, 2 Master. First off, Troll King, when you heal a friendly target, if they are still below 50% health, their health recovery is increased by 1.5k for 10 seconds. So that's pretty cool, that's a lot of extra health recovery. Then, second set, Toruks. Now, this doesn't look like it's super good, but trust me, this set is freaking strong. Decreases weapon enchantment cooldown and increases potency by 30%. As you have seen, we don't really have a lot of like stem recovery even when we are more or less buffed. It doesn't really matter because on this hand here, we are running an infused dagger with an absorb stem enchant. As you can see, deals 3.2k physical damage and restores 600 stamina. That's so freaking much, right? That's pretty cool. That's why I like Toruks. And every time we use the ability Rending Slashes or Blood Craze, in this case we have Blood Craze here, the enchantments proc. That's where we get a lot from our, like a lot of our damage from. It's really freaking strong. I will get into that a little bit later. On the back bar, we are running Weapon Damage Enchant Infused. Gives us so much. That's basically how we jump on the front bar from 2.8 to like almost 4k. Because again, the Toruks boosts that one on the back bar as well in combination with Infused. And we can keep this up 100%, no problem. In terms of traits, you can see I have mostly Impen and like 2 well fitted. You can also run 4 Impen, 3 well fitted. Make sure to have 5 heavy, 1 medium, 1 light. To get, or like to benefit as much as possible from the Undaunted here to get the max stats. Now, jewelry, I have 3 robust, all weapon damage. You can change this up a little bit. So I like robust because we already don't have a lot of stem, but it doesn't really matter. You could run protective to get even tankier, or swift if you want more movement speed. Triune if you want more overall stats, like more max health and so on. But as you can see, we have 27k health. If you have a warden in a group, it jumps to like 30k. Then here, so I basically run an ox on the main hand with a Nernhound and a befooled weapon enchant. Now you can choose here, you could also run another infused. I like the extra weapon damage Nernhound gives, and because we have Toruks active anyway, the enchantment already gets boosted by quite a bit. Like I mentioned here, a dagger absorbs stem infused. You could use 2 oxes. You could run 2 oxes because bleeds are very freaking strong. Don't forget that. Where here? So each ox gives you melee attacks, 8% chance to bleed enemies for 6k physical damage over 6 seconds. Same goes for the 2-hander. Ox grants your melee attack 60% chance to apply a bleed. So that's a lot of dots. We have so many dots on this build, even though we don't use a lot of damage abilities. On the back bar, Viper Sting is also active. When you deal damage with a melee attack, you deal an additional 6k poison damage over 4 seconds. I will showcase it in a second, how, like, after we are through the basic stuff, just some quick gameplay that you can see. So when we attack an enemy with our gap closer, we hit him, use a light attack and Noxious Breath weapon swap. That basically has a chance to proc the X bleed. We will put Noxious Breath dot on him, and Viper Sting will proc. That can technically already be 3 dots. Then always on the front bar, all the other enchantments can proc. Again, the Ox Bleeds can proc. We also have, obviously, Block Race that puts another dot on him, Deadly Cloak and so on. So there's so much damage that we can push in a matter of a second. And it's really hard to out-heal it, trust me. Second thing, so that's about the gear, I guess, should be clear. A few important passives. Medicinal use, you really don't want to forget this. When using potions, resulting effects last 30% longer. You need this, okay? This is mandatory for every build in this game. You don't have this, you're doing it wrong. Other than that, we are running Suchic abilities, so you want to make sure to have those passives here. You could be a werewolf or a vampire, but you don't need to. It's optional. Make sure to have heavy armor, everything. Medium armor, you want dexterity, windwalker, and athletics, because we have 1 piece, right? 1 piece medium. So it actually boosts our stats a little bit. Light armor, you need the first 2 mostly. You could actually, yeah, you could get this one too. The first 3. Dual wield 2-hander, the passives are all listed on my site. Few other important mentions, combustion. So when you apply poisoned to an enemy, you restore 500 stamina. It has a 5-second cooldown. So that can happen through our Noxious Breath from the dot. Poison status effect can proc. Then we have a little bit better sustain. World in Ruin also decreases the stamina cost, so this is pretty cheap to use. Other things worth mentioning. Elder Dragon increases your health recovery by 5% for each draconic power ability slotted, and also increases range of your instant melee attacks by 2 meters. Pretty cool. Now, while a draconic power ability is active, your healing received is increased by 12%, so you need to make sure to keep volatile armor up here. It's a lot of extra healing. Battle Roar, whenever we activate ultimate, we get a lot of resources back. And Mountain's Blessing, so when you cast an Earth and Hurt ability, you and your group gain minor brutality for 20 seconds, so you get another 10% weapon damage. That's for example when we use Fossilize. Helping Hand, when we activate Fossilize, we gain 10%, basically 1000 stamina. There's a lot of things that work with passive with this build, it's really nice. Now, in terms of skills, Deadly Cloak. First off, this gives us Major Evasion. 25% AoE damage reduction is so freaking strong. On top of that, it also deals a little bit of damage. And we can activate this before we engage. Deadly Cloak can also already proc both our enchantments on the front bar. Fossilize, so this is your key ability, that's how you kill people. The thing with Fossilize is, it is undodgeable and unblockable. So you can decide when you want to stun an enemy if he doesn't have CC immunity. That's why I say we dot him up with everything, Fossilize, and then we spam Blood Craze till he's dead. And most people die because the enchantments do so much damage. It's in Battlegrounds, you barely can out-heal the damage. This ability should not be underestimated, and you need to learn how to use it correctly. Blood Craze, first off, this adds another small heal, and it deals a lot of damage. So this is our main spammable, and you can see it only costs 1.8k stem. Things like, let's say, Crushing Weapon, they're way more expensive and barely do more damage. The reason why this is so good is, first off, it applies a dot, right? And you have a direct damage hit at the start, the impact hit, and the first dot hit comes 0.5 seconds later. So even when you decide to spam this ability, it will always hit with the instant hit and the dot. Plus, the enchantments on your front bar will proc as well. That's why there's so much outgoing damage. Deep Thoughts. This is cool because in Battlegrounds, in between fights, you can use this to restore stamina, magicka, health, and so on. Very, very strong. That's why I have this here. You could technically play without it. You could run Fragmented Shield to get Major Mending for more healing. But really, I found Major Mending not to be necessary because we already have so much passive healing. I'd rather actually use this. Resolving Vigor. Now this, you need to keep this up all the time. It has 5 seconds duration. It's your main heal. Temporal Guard. We only slot this to get minor protection. 8% less damage. We don't really use this ability. Backbar Rally adds another really strong heal over time on you, and a burst heal if you reactivate it. Plus it gives us weapon damage, major brutality buff. Noxious Breath applies fracture on the enemy, so their physical resistance is reduced. It's very cheap to use, and it also applies a dot. Critical Rush. This is our gap closer. Now, you don't necessarily need it. I sometimes played without it and I just did fine. But I found this to be more useful than, for example, an Execute. Because frankly, just spamming Blood Craze deals about the same damage as using Reverse Slice. Volatile Armor. Like I said, it boosts our healing. It also gives us Major Ward and Major Resolve, increasing our spell and physical resistance. And it also deals a little bit of damage. Race Against Time. Now this is a key ability. Don't underestimate it. You see, I can basically have speed buff permanently and I barely use stamina. That's why this is so nice. That's the reason why you don't necessarily need a gap closer. Berserker Rage. A lot of people might be wondering why I use this and not things like Take Flight. You can run Take Flight if you want, but I found this to be more useful because when you fight several enemies, this is so strong. Not because it deals a lot of damage, but you are immune to all disabling, snare and immobilization effects for the duration. On top of that, this attack ignores the target's resistance and grants you physical and spell resistance equal to the amount ignored for 8 seconds. So when you hit the heavy armor target, he has like 20k resistance. You're gonna have 47 and 40k here. Sure, it's over the hard cap, but it doesn't matter. Nobody can kill you during those 8 seconds. And it's also nice because if the enemy is low health, it can kill them off, obviously. But I mostly use this for defensive. Use Noxious Breath with the Viper proc, Deadly Cloak and Block Raise with all the enchantments and Master X is already enough to kill off people. We don't really need ultimate that much. This is more for defensive. That's the setup. Block Raise is really strong on this build. I highly recommend getting Master Weapons. The Master X's Stinging Slash set increases the bleed damage. Twin Slashes deals by 1.35 each tick. I really recommend getting those weapons. If you don't have them, you could just front bar Viper as well or run 2 agility weapons. Yeah. You need to weapon swap a lot with this build because you want to keep up Viper proc from the back bar. You want to keep up the weapon damage from the back bar and so on. Okay, I think I explained everything here. Oh, another, almost forgot, the Suchik order, so concentrated barrier. Basically, when we block, we get the small shield, 2.5k. It's very small, but it helps a little bit. Pretty cool. We have that on both bars. And when we are casting or channeling something, we get major protection. So why we have this active? We have major protection and minor protection, so 38% damage reduction. In case you need to restore this like mid-fight. If you use this mid-fight still, try to go around the corner so your dudes, the enemies can't hit you for a second or two. Now to quickly show off some combat. Never forget to activate Noxious Breath from the back bar because it also procs the Viper set. Keep Deadly Cloak up for the damage mitigation, use Block Raise as spammable, and Fossilize if possible. Here I decide to use the two-hander ulti to get me some resistances, and you see there's 3 dudes against me and I really don't have an issue fighting against them as long as my two-hander ulti is still active. Right about when my ulti runs out, my buddies come in to help me fight against those dudes. Once again, the importance of Fossilize. The enemies cannot dodge roll or block it. You decide when you want to stun them. So you want to dot them up, and then in the right moment you want to use Fossilize, Block Raise, Block Raise, Block Raise, and most of them die. Now here I see I have a split second to actually rechannel myself, so I use my default ability to channel. In this scene you can see there's a lot of enemies coming, so again I use the two-hander ulti. I'm basically, well, not immortal, but I take so little damage. And I also have Deadly Cloak up, so all those spin to win dudes barely deal any damage to me. And because the two-hander ulti is up, I also cannot really get rooted. I'm immune to most things. Once again, I have gameplay footage on the website and I'm also streaming from time to time on Twitch. You will find all the links in the description below. Please make sure to not forget to subscribe and hit the juicy like button. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Cheers.